Welcome, friends, come on in. Let's explore where truth begins. Here inside, shining bright, wisdom grows as we unite. Let's open doors to heart and mind. Let's shine the light.
Hi, this is Susan Pitcairn and
Richard Pitcairn.
welcome to our show, Open Doors, where together we explore the mysteries of life and what it is to live in freedom. If you enjoy this kind of content, please like and subscribe. Thanks. And now for today's show. Hi, today we thought we'd talk about something that we've often talked about, and you have some, or have had some fairly strong views, or at least interest in a certain viewpoint, and I sometimes differ with you on that. So we're going to dig into it today, and Richard's going to present, his arguments basically, or his views on this subject, and I'm going to question him a little bit, and we'll just see where it goes.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Are we going to get into physical fight?
I hope not,
Yeah.
because you're bigger.
Oh,
But I might have more muscle.
but you're
I don't
stronger.
know.
Yeah.
It could be. It could be.
So what's your thought here? What's
Okay,
your,
my
what's your
thought. Well,
question?
okay, so the question is, we have kind of different views on what is reality. I'm more inclined to be materialistic. You're more inclined to be non-physical or spiritual, or to see the world as being an illusion. And I do see some evidence for that here and there, like people's reports, especially from NDEs, will be like, this whole thing was like a dream, it was like an illusion, this is the real world, this afterlife. And then you've also spoken about Christian Science healings and things like that, where they take the view that really this is not the real world, and the real world is everything's perfect and God made it perfect, and it would seem that oftentimes when they really hold that view strongly and see it that way, then they get real world results with healings and stuff. So that's impressive. And yet I find it hard in this kind of solid reality to see it that way. Like, so when you speak of the rose being an illusion, does that mean, it seems real enough, does that mean it could somehow at some point just kind of vanish and dissolve in front of our eyes when we see that? I mean, what does it mean?
Well,
That's a lot.
that's a big question, isn't it?
Yeah, it is,
There's
yeah.
a lot of implications. I think the best way that I can answer that is talk from my own experience, because I think that my path through this is not that different than anybody else's, but I came through a very strict religious training as a child, which brought into me a lot of fear of the world, feeling that I had done things wrong,
You specifically, this was Catholicism in the 1960s, which had a lot of hellfire and damnation in it.
Yeah, and I think though I hadn't probably put into my mind clearly, I think the question that developed for a long time, decades, was, why is the world like this? Did God create this world where we have such great suffering? Because the teachings that I had been told was we were being, in a sense, punished, for having made mistakes.
Original sin also, right?
Yeah, original sin, and it had continued, and there was confusing things, like, for instance, the questions that would come up for me is, going back to in the Bible, Genesis, if Adam and Eve made a mistake, why would God punish them when God was all-knowing when he created them? In other words, if God was all-knowing and created Adam and Eve and knew that if he tested them that they would fail, why would he do it?
Right.
That's not kind.
Right. It didn't make sense. So
it didn't make sense. And then not only that, but then when they did make a mistake, apparently, then he punishes them and their children, which is unloving.
So it sounds to me like those are very reasonable questions, and those are the kinds of questions, a little different, that caused me to kind of fall away from my kind of Christian light upbringing.
Mhm.
But what it implies to me is that you believed all those teachings in the first place. You just were questioning them, but you accepted the authority of the Bible and of the church.
I had no choice about it. I was a child. I went to a Catholic school. I had religion every day for 12 years.
It's a lot of conditioning.
A lot of conditioning.
And when you're a child, you don't have, like you said, any choice about what's
No.
being laid upon you, and it was kind of scary, and you didn't know any better, right?
No.
But
So I came out of it
Yeah.
with a lot of fear and a lot of questioning, like, why would it be like this? Why would God create a world like this?
Yeah.
What did we do? You know, on and on. I don't have
Sure.
to go into more detail. You get the idea, I think. So anyway, that was on my mind, and I could never, even though I kind of broke away from it and started studying other teachings,
Yeah.
I never got an answer, I felt.
to those
Until
questions.
I came across a book, a spiritual book. It's called A Course in Miracles. I didn't know anything about it. I opened it up at random, seeing it on a bookshelf, and I immediately read, God did not create this world. We did. A long time I've been dealing with that question. It was, you know, and I felt, you know, again, I can only speak for myself, but you might relate to it if I say somehow it had a very deep and profound effect on me.
Mm-hmm.
I felt I had come across the answer.
Hadn't you already, though, before that, put a lot of study? I know you bought a lot of books on Christian Science teachings, on Quimby, on Swedenborg, and other things that you took especially strong interest in questioning the nature
Well, I was
of
trying to
reality.
understand healing because I
But-
was working in medicine.
But those didn't really quite answer it the way the Course in Miracles did, or
Well, Christian Science, I'm not a Christian scientist, I should say. I'm not
Yeah.
committed to it. I don't belong to any religion.
Right.
But I found it very interesting to study it because they have a very, what in our world of today, as good a record of healings as any other source
Yeah.
of science or anything.
some of the ones you've read to me have been pretty amazing.
Yeah, they have witnesses, they have people that confirm that this really happened and so on. So anyway, I was very impressed by that and I tried to understand it. And Christian Science, as I understand it from having read about it, looks at it very much the same way. That the way I put it in my mind is, and again, a Christian scientist may hear this and correct me, but the way I understand it is that if somebody comes to you with some kind of a health issue, and I'm a practitioner, or I'm coming from Christian Science understanding, I'm going to not try to heal them because that assumes their condition is real.
You're not going to heal them from the point of view that this is the problem. They have diabetes, they have
Yes.
cancer, or whatever, and that's what's in front of me. I've got to
Right.
fix it. Yeah,
I'm
Which
not
is
going to fix it.
which is what most
What I'm gonna do-
practitioners come from.
Oh, of course, yeah. I'm not going to try to fix it. Rather, I turn around to myself and ask, why did I see it that way?
That's kind of strange, isn't it? I mean, from the normal materialistic perspective, it's hard to understand how that could be because, you had separate lives and, what
Oh,
do you
yeah.
have to do with this person's illness,
Yeah. Well, again, as I understand it, when you bring that question to yourself, why do I see it that way, is acknowledging, bringing to your awareness again, that all that was created by God is perfect. And I have somehow not seen it right. So I have to correct my perception.
It sounds like it also has some kind of an implication that what you see in front of you is what you, or God through the channel of your free will or something, how it's being seen, and it's being seen in mirror. In other words, you, Richard, are seeing it incorrectly, but maybe Joe, Christian Science practitioner Blow, maybe is seeing it correctly. So there's, in other words,
Well, I didn't feel like going into, probably why I didn't just dive into Christian Science as my full-time
Yeah.
study was some of these questions weren't answered for me.
okay,
What is, the way Mary Baker Eddy puts it, she refers to the human mind. The human mind being the mind that sees misperception,
didn't you call it the mortal mind or something?
or the mortal
Yeah.
mind. I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think they call it mortal mind. And that the truth is the divine mind. The divine mind sees only what's true, which is perfect, which is good. The human mind or mortal mind sees error.
Could you also use the word...
They refer to it as error. It's a mistake.
Right. Could you also use the word creates, that the mortal mind creates reality a
They
certain way,
don't.
and divine
I
mind
didn't see
creates
that
it?
kind of language.
Oh, okay.
However, other teachings, like A Course in
Right.
Miracles, does say that.
Right.
It says that it confirms. It doesn't refer to Christian Science at all.
Yeah.
It just comes from the same perspective that what God created is always perfect and good, and anything that's not perfect and good is an illusion, and that we created the illusion by imagining it, but it was a mistake.
So when you first saw this Course in Miracles teaching that kind of almost fell out of the bookshelf into your hands, you saw something that was a little different there than the previous teachings from Mary Baker Eddy and the New Thought movement, maybe, but you saw something that was special, that was unique. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, I think, again, this is for my own particular path of
Right.
trying to understand things as best I could. That's what was always driving me.
Sure.
Was always, those kind of questions were always very dominant in my mind. Even though I did other things. You know, I worked in medicine,
Yeah. Homeopathy.
studied physics and
Yeah.
all that stuff. Still, these questions were always there at the top.
Huh.
You know, why is it that way? Why?
Like how often were you thinking that? Like every day? Or
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is very important.
So when I
Okay.
came across it as an answer, it's not that's not that different than what I just described in Christian Science. But to me, what drew me to study from that point on, to really focus on that particular teaching, was detailed explanation of how we brought it about and how to fix it.
And I would say you've stayed with this for a good 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for those that are not familiar with it, Course in Miracles, it's a channeling. And I know some people will just dismiss that entirely, and I understand. It's said to be coming from the person that we knew as Jesus, we call Jesus. Actually, in this communication that came through this channeling, it said that actually his name was Jeshua, but that doesn't matter. It's not important. It's what's interesting about it was that it came about with a woman who was a psychologist working in a university in the East. So she wasn't particularly religious. She was a psychologist working on the faculty there, and she and the fellow that ran the department, the two of them were always kind of in conflict, and it was an unpleasant experience for years.
Huh.
And at one point, this fellow Bill, his name Bill Thetford, was the head of the department, said to her, but it was basically the message was, there must be a better way for us to function than what we've been doing. And she agreed to that, see if they could find that. And when she went home that night, she heard a voice saying, write this down.
So that came the same night after this
I think it was the same night.
choice or something.
Again, I'm not absolutely certain.
Soon after.
Very soon.
After the choice, the desire to cooperate and learn something,
desire
open their minds.
The desire to find a different way to live together. Very soon, I think it's, again, going by my memory, but very soon that night, I think, a voice said to write this down. It was A Course in Miracles, and she did write it, but she thought she was going insane. And she took it the next day to Bill and told him that she had this problem. And he read it and said, no, actually, this is very good. I want you to continue.
Well,
And so she did, somewhat reluctantly, for 7 years, transcribing this material. And she wasn't particularly into it in the sense that she was desiring it, but she went along with it. She did, I think, sort of a quasi-relationship with it. I don't know how to put it. It wasn't like she desired it particularly.
she was willing, it sounds like.
Yeah. So the funny thing about it, I think, was after maybe a couple of years into doing this, writing, daily.
Right, it's a lot.
I mean, it's a book.
It is thick, yeah.
It's thick.
It's a surprising tome.
Yeah.
Which is part of the reason I have not looked into it. I don't like to read a lot, actually.
So the interesting thing about it was after a couple of years, she somehow came up with a question asking the source of this channeling, who are you?
She hadn't done that before?
No, apparently
really? Well,
not.
That's interesting.
It is interesting.
Yeah, wow.
And so the response was, I'm the one you call Jesus.
It
And
took
she
that
said,
long.
yeah, I think it was, again, I may not be quite
Well,
right,
yeah.
but the point is that she did ask this question, and the interesting thing was she responded with, what? I don't even believe in you. Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
But she went on with it, and so the thing, coming back to why I found it a very useful work, is I've never found any other teaching in anything I've read
Mm-hmm.
that goes into specific detail about how we imagined it and how to fix it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, can you give an example of that kind of detail?
Yeah, it focuses a lot on what we call the ego. It says that the original problem, in terms of time, because it says there is no time, but anyway, the original problem was that we basically were, I'm putting it again in my own words, it may not be quite right,
Which is good.
but that we were created by God, the source, as expressions of God. We're not separate from God. We are expressions of God basically to be creative.
Mm-hmm. Would you see that as like, this is before incarnation in physical world?
Yes,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
was this some kind of spirit beings or
Before
light
there
beings
was a physical
or
universe.
units of consciousness, or how would you describe what you understand that to have been?
I think it was before there was any kind of form, before there was time, space.
Yeah, we check out the musical video, Before Time and Space. Yeah.
Yes, and that we were created, not we, and many of us, there was one creation.
There's one soul, you say.
So we might say, perhaps we could say,
One child of God.
one extension of as consciousness, maybe. Maybe that's the way to put it. I'm not absolutely certain. But that was how it began, and that we were given the ability.
Why would you say we when it was
I know,
one? Yeah, okay.
I know.
All right.
Otherwise, say I. It wasn't Richard.
But this is like an offspring of God, of the source. It's like this is not God
But
per
this
se.
is God per se.
But you say God created us, but it was one being.
But we're not separate. We're extensions of God, just like our hand is.
Oh.
We're not separate at all.
So was it like God sort of developed, you might say, in some way?
Yes, an ability, you might say.
Became more expressed or more manifested?
Well, I think the way I understand it is develop the ability to have a variety of experiences.
And had a desire to do so, I suppose.
Maybe, presumably,
Yeah.
if God desires. It's hard to
Had an
say.
interest in some sort of being creative.
Yeah, intention, I guess.
To be a creator.
Anyway, gave us that. I'm going to put it in words. I don't know how else to put it in plural.
Right.
Gave us human consciousness, I guess you could say, maybe, or consciousness in general.
Sentient consciousness.
Of the whole universe.
Yeah, right. Creative consciousness.
This
How
is
about
before
that?
the universe existed.
You know, some have used the term creative consciousness. Maybe that would work.
Yeah, because that's what, again, the Course of Miracles says, what all God does is create.
Yeah, okay.
That God is only love and extends itself. That's all. Has no other function.
Okay, like not to judge or
No judgment,
punish or anything like that.
No judgment, no
That was-
limitation, no restriction, no punishment,
That
nothing
was
like that.
probably a big relief to your
Oh,
Catholic
yeah,
mind.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Not easy, but to work through it.
yeah.
So anyway, back to the explanation is, I'm trying to give it in a short way.
Yeah.
We were this extension of God with the ability to basically, I guess, have a mind, probably is the way to put it. I hadn't thought of this before. But to have a mind that can be then creative in that sense.
With free will too, right?
I guess you could say choice to do whatever you want. There's
Yeah.
no restriction. God has no restriction in
so
what
it's
we
free
imagine.
will.
However, we can imagine anything we want. But there's much that possibly that we could imagine that cannot become real. For example, that God dies.
Okay.
Or that God separates.
Okay. In other words, things that aren't really true.
Yes, only what can be true is what's good, because we are extensions of God. We're not separate, and God creates only what's good, never anything negative.
And yet we see a lot of negative stuff.
But we see a lot of it, and the reason for that was we came up with the idea, what would it be like to be separate from God?
Like just
And
as a
function as
curiosity. Like,
Yeah,
wonder-
it's just an idea.
So could you sort of say that was almost like God was wondering that? Since it's not separate yet, right?
Well, in a way you could, because, we being extensions of God, what else could do it? But anyway, the teaching is that imagination we had that we could be separate was not possible. But we could not be separate from God.
That idea was not.
It was not
we could
possible.
imagine it. It's
We
like,
can imagine
it's
it.
like I can imagine a pink elephant in front of me right now, but it doesn't seem to be possible. It's not happening.
Right. So it says, if we can imagine it, there's no restriction. God did not judge it. When that idea was considered for a bit, put it in terms of time, when that idea was sort of considered as a possibility, the whole universe sprang into existence.
So it was like we're not talking about just like the Big Bang and then over billions of years it differentiated and expanded into all kinds of stuff. It was more like you're saying, like the whole thing as it is now, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so that sort of eliminates the idea of evolution or time over time, doesn't it?
It says that time is something we created that's not true.
So in science, in material science, and in our common understanding now in modern times, we do have the idea the universe is like 13 or 14 billion years old, and most of it, the vast majority of it, 99.999% of it, whatever, preceded humanity.
Mm-hmm.
So that has been, for me, a major obstacle in believing this stuff. It's because it
seems real.
It seems very real. Everyday common experience is that it's real. It's solid. You got to eat. You got to sleep. You move around. You have a name.
Mm-hmm.
There's all these things that tell us over and over and over again that this reality that we're in is reality, and it's all there is for now. And it has an element of time, an element of time flowing forward. Although I know that some physicists question the nature of time and space in a different way, that it's not commonsensical. But
right.
And also they are saying things like it's all connected. String theory and
I have a book
spooky distance, all these different things.
I have a book on physics where it says time is not real.
Yeah.
The whole book's on that.
Yeah, I've produced a video on this channel with a major physicist who says, based on his own deep mystical experience, that the universe proceeds from within consciousness, and that it's made from love. That's the reality, and consciousness precedes all matter.
Could I take a diversion and
Sure.
come back to this?
Whatever you like.
I think it might help. So again, I want to come back to, we could talk about the ideas here and try to understand them.
Right.
But again, from the teaching there, is that the mind, that is, as an expression of the experience of feeling that we're separate and individual, we created the mind that we use.
The human mind.
What they call the ego mind.
Okay.
The ego mind thinks you're separate.
Which would be kind of equivalent to Mary Baker Eddy's mortal mind, maybe?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
the same as a mortal mind.
Okay.
And that mind cannot understand this.
Okay.
It's not possible.
Okay, so it'd be like a child trying to understand quantum physics or something.
You have to, anyway,
Yeah.
let's go back to, I want to say, the thing that really I found very valuable was explaining how we maintain it. It says, every moment we're maintaining the feeling of separation. And that the spiritual teaching that they transmit through that was to awaken from it by no longer continuing to manifest separateness. That all suffering comes from the idea of separation. That as soon as your mind comes to the point of knowing that you're not separate, that you're only one with God, all of this disappears.
Okay.
All right? So the thing that I find valuable in it is it teaches in detail how it is we maintain separation.
Okay.
I don't see any other teachings that do that. A lot of it is the movement in our mind of judgment. That we can only judge someone or something or some experience if we feel we're separate from it.
Right.
And so what they emphasize is learning not to judge anymore, what they call forgiveness. You give it up.
So when we see things that we think are bad or nasty or evil or unfair and all those kinds of things we see all the time, every day if we're looking for them, that we are to see that to stop judging them or forgive them. And so this is what would be the key to altering or transforming the reality that we perceive.
Because what we perceive, it says, is not real. So let me finish what I was thinking here. So again, there's a lot more detail we could go into about how it teaches how we maintain separation, but and the major mechanism we use to maintain separation is the belief in time.
Oh.
We've
Okay.
split reality, which is in the moment, into past, now, and future. And again, I'm just giving a summary, but that what we call the present moment, we give no attention to, that we are constantly thinking of the past and the future. That's the way our mind works.
And so that opens the gates kind of to the whole of all of human history as we imagine it, and all the conditioning and all the beliefs that go with it.
Yeah,
Maybe.
all of that is the past.
And I want
we
to add
think.
here that this is validated in some ways by people's near-death experiences, where it's commonly reported that they have some feeling, or some deep knowing that something like time doesn't exist, or all times are now, and that's perplexing, for our conditioned human minds to understand. But they say that they are certain of that, and it's hard to bring back any understanding of that,
Yeah.
or any proof of that, or any
Right, 'cause
explanation of that.
Because the mind that we're used to, that we use, can't understand
Yeah.
it.
So I mean, that really
And
does validate it.
that's been described many times by people after death
It
experiences.
has, yeah.
That they have this understanding, they come back and they can't understand it anymore.
Yeah, but they just have some kind of faith or trust that was
Yeah.
right.
So let me go back here to, I want to say, to finish this, about what the A Course in Miracles says we have to do to wake up to what's true, and therefore no longer suffer. And again, it says it's a choice. It's not
Not
wrong. It's not moral. There's no right and wrong. It's just something we chose to do. God does not judge it. There's no punishment. It's up to us entirely.
Kind of like a drama or a game that we
And that
created.
nothing happens to you, it says. Nothing in your life happens to you that you have not chosen.
So even if you're having horrible, torturous
Even then,
experiences,
you have chosen
you've
it,
chosen it for some reason.
For some reason.
Or just, whatever. We don't know.
which it goes into.
Yeah,
But
okay.
I'm not going to.
Not
We don't
right
need
now.
So what I want to bring out, and you're not going to like it.
Okay. Maybe
right.
I'll like it. Who
You
knows?
ready?
I might like it. You never know.
No, you won't like it.
Explaining it more than you usually do. Okay.
To awaken from this
Uh-huh.
and to be able to go on living without any suffering or conflict, you have to come to full knowing that this world is not real.
Do you feel like you've had that experience? And that's the
To
part.
some degree.
Yeah. How do you? Can you
It
say
says,
more about that?
It says that the belief we have, because we have the ability to imagine it in tremendous detail.
Right.
We're very creative. It can seem very real to us, no question, but our belief in that is the veil. That's what prevents us from knowing who we truly are.
So to change that belief, I'm going to assume you have to first be willing to question it. You have to open
Oh,
your
yeah.
mind, like this channel, open minds, open hearts. So you have to open doors. So you have to be willing to drop all belief that this is a fixed and real reality.
You have to question it.
Okay, and so is there a risk in doing that? A downside, because part of this reality is, lunchtime's coming up pretty soon. You're gonna get hungry. I think I am too, and we're gonna feel like we need to eat it.
Well, it doesn't say you're not having the experience,
Okay.
because you have the ability, as creative expressions of God, to experience anything we want, and we can experience being in a world what we think is physical and needing to eat lunch.
Okay.
It's not denying that,
Oh.
but
Okay.
what it's saying is know that it's a dream,
Or just know it.
know it,
Know it. And so
and
so that's going to
live
shift
from that
it.
point on,
Okay.
knowing it's a dream,
Okay.
and no longer giving it value.
Okay. So it's not that everything's going to suddenly shift into some sort of ethereal heaven world in which you don't have to eat and you don't have to.
Yes.
All these things we have to do.
It can do that at some point when
It-
you decide to.
Was that like a death, basically?
No.
No.
Mm-mm.
You mean you're saying that there have been humans maybe that have done that somehow disappeared from this realm, or what?
I guess you could put it that way. That it's saying that it's entirely up to us what we want to experience, and that what we experience, I think we can say in general for all of it, is is our belief and attachment to this world.
Right.
And it's very difficult for us to give that up. So it refers to it as a gradual process.
Okay.
Now it says there is no time that it could be given. It says, it uses the words, it's possible to give it up in the blink of an eye. And suddenly the world's gone. And you laugh. But it says very few have done that. Most of us, what they experience is a gradual transition, stepwise. It says it's not necessary that it be that way, but that's, in practical terms, that's the way it is for us.
Well, that's interesting. It sounds like it would have to somehow. I mean, if you were to do that, maybe, are you just gonna like disappear? You know, I know you have a book called The Disappearance of the Universe. It's like, I mean, again, of course, I'm perceiving it like you're you and I'm me. There's a separation, and we're also separate from Source or God, whatever it is, in some way.
Yeah.
And I don't pretend to be the God of all universe, you know. I might be a drop in the ocean of that, you know. So that's more my view. But this is really where I get stuck on this thing. You know, it's just like, okay, I can buy that you would disappear after you die. And you could just dissolve into some other world or into just pure oneness or light or love, energy or something like that. I can buy that could happen. Okay. And probably some people don't even buy that much, but I do, you know. I'll put a bid in on that one. But it's worth a fair amount, you know. But the other part, I don't see how that would work. Do you?
I'm not sure.
I mean, if you gradually or instantaneously came to fully 100% see or perceive that this reality is not real, and something radically shifts, and maybe your body disappears, would your body disappear because that's been aging now for this, you know, 84 years here?
In a way, you're asking the question from the assumption that the world exists. Like, well, would your body disappear? and more accurately, it says that the experience we're having, which refers to as illusion or dream, is, and we're having the experience. It's not denying that.
Oh yeah.
But we give it the value of being real and true. That's the mistake. All right. So what I want to say is the experiences that we expect to have, which is, again, you know, having lunch and having a physical body and having to poop and everything.
Oh.
You know, that...
Okay. I won't edit that out. Okay.
You know, that seems very real to us.
Yes.
Includes the idea that we die and that we then continue on as a spirit, and then we have the choice of going to other places or to reincarnating.
So this negates all of that.
All of that is the dream.
So all of that. Okay, so let's stop back. This is a big shift from a lot of metaphysical views. Yes. Okay.
So it says that not necessarily moving away from the idea of death, but the idea of having this experience, starting out, as we all probably feel, is that it's real. We're here. We're having it. The teaching of this, the spiritual teaching, is that gradually, because it takes that you become fearful if it's too fast. That gradually you become to understand, and as you begin to understand, then the effect of that is that you become more in alignment with what's true. There's less suffering, there's less conflict in your life gradually. And you finally come to the point, and then you live in the world, even having.
So it's like a happy dream kind of thing.
Yeah, it refers to it as becoming a happy dream in which you don't experience any war or disease or epidemics.
And you know it's a dream.
And you know it's a dream, but you enjoy it.
You choose to have it be happy now.
Yeah, and so it refers to as something like you're in the playground having fun.
Okay.
All right, and then eventually, and again, it's your choice entirely. There's nothing beyond you that's going to tell you what to do or decide it for you.
No.
It's entirely you. You being the extension of God.
No. Okay.
All right? That you come
this
to the
include
point.
You, dear viewer. Right?
You come to the point where you basically say, I've had enough, I've lost interest in it. And at that point, it drops away, the whole thing.
The whole universe.
The whole universe, the whole life, the whole experience,
man, that's
all
powerful.
incarnations, everything is
But
God.
it only drops away for you, not for me.
No, it drops away.
For everyone?
There is no everyone. You see?
This is what's crazy about it. It's like, okay.
It
And
said-
how would you know it dropped away, first of all, if there's nothing left?
It says that,
Would there be anything left?
again,
I'm sorry to ask all these crazy questions, but
no, it's good.
Yeah.
It says, early, going back, the experience we've created, having the ability to create whatever we want, that we created the idea of individual beings.
Right.
And then further, the next step being each individual being creates their own world.
But there's a lot of
And the world-
there's a lot of overlap on common
There's a
playing
lot of
field.
overlap.
Yeah, right.
We agreed on certain things.
Right. Earth,
But
etc.
you and I and everyone else has a somewhat different world.
Right.
And it's that world that we release and wake up.
Well, we live in different places. We have different bodies. We have different ideas and beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
That's the world that disappears. Because the body, I'm wondering if one day I'm going to, okay, pause,
whole world
pause here. I am wondering if one day I'm going to wake up and Richard's just gone. And there's no explanation.
No, because
No.
you'll wake up and there's no Susan.
Well, then what's left?
God.
So, in other words, at some point, well, if this teaching is real, is valid, and one, whatever one is, okay, which could just be God doing all this, and one fully wakes up to the reality of this teaching, then one would have to be God waking up to the decision, and seeing that this choice had been made to kind of create this illusion, this dream, and enough already. And so, what is there? Is there still form? We don't know, maybe, but is there still form? Is there like a heavenly world? What would be there?
No, it says that there's no form. It's just spiritual.
What would spiritual be like? A feeling, a light.
It says there's no time, there's no thought, there's no language. That we're all one. Immediately know whatever.
Would it be like a void, like the Buddhists
I
talk
don't
about
know.
a void?
I don't know.
I mean, it doesn't
It
necessarily
says that you
sound
can't
appealing.
really explain it in our
Yeah.
words. It's beyond that.
Well,
Because
again,
all we know is time,
yeah,
space,
right,
words,
right.
definition, and it said it can't define it. It's not explainable to our minds that are limited.
Okay, I get that that's not explainable. That could be a rationale for a neological belief system.
It could be.
Could be.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to allow that possibility. So, but if it's true, then it seems like the implications would be that the universe comes to an end, or doesn't. The appearance of the universe comes to an end, and then potentially, I guess, if God wanted to do it over again, God could. If that was a decision that was made somewhere along, maybe God would kind of say, "Gee, what was I thinking?" and maybe he wouldn't do it again. I don't know.
Well, interestingly enough, it says in these teachings that God does not know about this. That God knows only what's true. So it doesn't know. God is not having this experience.
Well, could we say by God we might mean the God state of consciousness does not know about the mortal, materialistic, divided state of consciousness, because by definition it's a different thing. So that, to me, that makes more sense to put it that way, because we're used to personalizing God as this guy in the sky and everything, and so it's hard for our minds to get out of that. But if you speak of it as a state of consciousness, that makes more sense to me. So the state of consciousness of being formless, pure essence, love, infinity, eternity, whatever characteristics we might assign to it, which is going to be limited in our views, that state of consciousness, when whatever one is, when one is immersed in that state of consciousness or completely experiences it, one cannot simultaneously experience this 3D world of separation or any other planet or any other, would this have to say any other dimension, including archangels and all that kind of stuff, and the idea of spiritual progress and life between lives and all all of that.
All of that.
Okay. So this
Because
is talking about
the
something.
only reason that we continue to experience is that we think it's real. As soon as we come to the knowing it's not real, it's gone. Because it never existed.
And we don't feel like it's a loss because
No, not at all.
we don't even know at first.
No,
We don't even know at that point. One, let's just say one doesn't know, because there's no we there. We implies multiple. That's going to be, dualistic. So one, like Federico Faggin, the physicist I mentioned earlier, that he uses that word one. So one.
Mm-hmm. There's only one.
And you don't even say I, because
Well, you give up the idea of separateness.
Yeah,
See, and so then what's left is
right,
one.
right. And the word I gets contaminated with egoic
Oh yeah.
uses of the word I, even though it's capitalized and everything. It's like I, Susan, I, Richard, whatever, I, the person that's watching this, etc. But the use of the word one could just refer to a state of consciousness, actually, of, you wouldn't even call it unity because there's no disunity or lack of unity.
Yeah,
there's no opposite there.
Could be a way to put it.
When there's something's formless, there's no potential for oppositeness.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so you got, up and down, you got male and female, dark and light, and day and night in the world of form.
Yes.
But in the formless, there's no opposite.
Let me bring in another angle here
Okay.
that many people will not like and agree with, but I think it's important.
Okay.
As part of the teaching.
Go for it.
That so often we think in terms of trying to justify the world that we're in, that God created it for a purpose, and that we're spiritual beings. Maybe some people may buy into that, that we're spiritual beings, that we come into form to learn something.
Right. That's common.
That's common.
May I say a little bit on that? Just like, for example, to learn patience, love, strength, courage, wisdom,
Right.
and to becoming maybe ultimately a bodhisattva, that comes back to serve the world and all that kind of stuff. And so it's like or just to experience a grand drama, a play, and have fun. It could be a game. Just about every explanation of the universe and why we're here,
Right.
and so forth, or the biblical explanation too.
Okay.
It's all different than this teaching.
Let me go into this.
Okay.
Again, it'd probably be offensive.
Well, it may or may not.
some.
It's new to a lot of people, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this idea that we are having experiences and that we're learning, evolving and growing
In time.
learning good versus bad, learning how to love,
Right,
etc., etc. A Course in Miracles says that we are extensions of God, that we are, as extensions of God, perfect. There's absolutely nothing that we have to know or learn.
I'm not sure I get how this extensions
Let me
of
go
God
further.
thing is. Okay, go
Okay.
ahead.
That function, you might say, as maybe functioning, as we're talking about functioning as experience, that it's perfect, that we are God. We're not separate from God. We're not less than. We are expressions of God.
But expressions, again, is multiplicity, and multiplicity
No.
to me implies form.
Not as multiplicity, expressions as oneness. That's what it says. The idea that we have that we're learning something and that we're advancing,
Yes.
or that we're growing,
Right.
and that we're evolving, all of that is part of the illusion.
Got it.
It said that the world we experience, though we experience it, and we have fun or don't, or we feel we learn, whatever, that actually in truth, the world itself has no value whatsoever, and that we do not get anything of value from it. We experience it. It's like a game, if you want.
Well, that's a certain kind of value if you just enjoy a game, right?
Yeah, you could enjoy or not enjoy the game.
But God wouldn't be
Go to jail.
But God or one, let's just say the one has nothing to do with it, because the one
Nothing to do with
the
it.
one don't know nothing about all this story
No.
going on. Okay,
No.
that's interesting.
Let me clarify more of what is meant by the word value. Because you said, we can enjoy the game. So if you want, you could say that's valuable to you. But what is meant by the word value in these teachings is the idea behind that word that somehow we have added to ourselves. we have acquired some ability or understanding.
That this is better than just being God, or the God consciousness, source consciousness,
Yeah.
unmanifest.
Yes, that we can somehow, again, it's a belief that's part of the idea of separation. That first there's the idea that we're separate. Then from that follows the idea that we are independent, and that we, because now we experience ourselves as individuals separate from each other, and that brings in fear.
Oh,
That
yeah.
brings in the idea of
Everything.
that I
Brings in
don't have
everything.
what I need. So then
Insecurity.
there's a whole process for a lifetime of trying to be more secure and trying to acquire what's good for me and become better, spiritually and physically.
Right, and I want to emphasize this too, because this is one of the things I feel like I've learned a lot in this life, is that all the forms of neuroses and upset and emotional issues and all that could all be boiled down to one word: insecurity.
Oh yeah.
And so you're fundamentally insecure when you see yourself as being a separate being in a world of many other beings that have other power and
Yes,
could do something
yes.
to you.
You see yourself as a finite form,
Yeah.
now vulnerable.
Yep.
Whereas if you're oneness, there is no.
Right. And if you're the unmanifest, better yet. And I wanted to say also, stop me if this distracts you, but the Vedantic teachings and ancient teachings, like in India and the rishis, the yogis, etc., talked about the manifest and the unmanifest. And so the unmanifest would be also called the absolute. I'm sure they have another word for that in Sanskrit, but the absolute sounds like absolute truth, actually, kind of precedes or is just apart from, independent from the manifest. And sometimes the gurus, like one that I studied with a bit, talked about having one foot in one world and one of the manifest and one foot in the other world of the absolute. So I don't know if this would tie in with what you're talking about.
Well, it sounds a little different in the sense from when you talk that way, it sounds like that there is two worlds.
Well, there is, in a sense. I mean, but you're going to just say that one's real and one's not real.
Yeah. See, again, I'm trying to communicate as clearly as I can the teaching there that I'm talking about.
Course in Miracles.
So people understand it, which is that there are not two worlds, that the world we think we experience is a dream, an illusion, that does not actually exist in reality.
But we could call it a dream world, which we are experiencing right now, because
We could call it that, but it actually does not exist.
maybe it doesn't really exist, but it sure feels like it
Oh, yeah,
exists right
absolutely,
now. You know,
absolutely.
Just saying.
So I want to go back
Okay.
to this thing about value, that for many people, whatever they study, be it spiritual teachings or whatever they do, they are coming from the idea that there's something that they are going to do that's going to bring value to them. They're going to improve themselves. They're going to ascend. They're going to be smarter, more spiritual,
Become
more
enlightened.
powerful, become enlightened. And A Course in Miracles basically denies all of that and says that what they basically advise, in the sense that, or describe as a path that they're teaching, is that you begin the whole they call it a course in mind training, that you understand how your mind is creating this experience. That's what they're emphasizing in detail. How are you doing it? By
Right now.
yeah,
Because
every
if-
moment.
because if you-
and you're thinking
you know.
about yourself as having a self-image, judging things, etc. I won't go into that.
Right, and if
But
you think
what
if you think you're going to get more aware of all this through time, that you're already in the illusion.
Right, the idea that you're going to grow, that you're going to advance spiritually, etc.
I am studying the Course in Miracles now, and I'm getting better,
Right.
and I'm waking up.
Yeah.
That would be an illusion also.
So the path that they are teaching is that as you learn this, you basically recognize what you're doing. You watch it. You don't have to judge it. You just watch it. See how your mind is projecting things, how you think you're going to have this experience, or how you're going to be a better person.
Right.
Just watch it. Learn about it, how it's doing it. And it's saying that as you learn about it, you realize that all it's doing is perpetuating the experience you've been having. And so gradually you put it aside until your mind becomes, basically quiet and empty. And that then, not as a process of learning anything or acquiring anything, what happens then on the spiritual path, so to speak, is remembering.
Oh.
All it is remembering what you are. That then you allow, because the whole process we're doing all the time of keeping the mind active, always thinking about ourselves progressing in time, gaining this, gaining that, having that experience, this experience, protecting ourselves. All of that is preventing ourselves from remembering who we are. And once we put that aside and gradually become more open and relaxed, the remembrance comes back to us. We have not acquired or learned anything. All we've done is remember what we are.
That's a good one. I have to say, I can relate to that. I have had feelings, there's a little bit of a feeling of a chuckling behind the scenes, like, like,
Yes.
like, yeah, I know who I am. It's like, I'm not going to prove it to anybody, but just there's this inner feeling that I know something like this. And I want to say that just last night we were talking with some friends, and I was sharing an experience I'd kind of forgotten about when I was at a spiritual retreat with a so-called master or whatever of Shaktipat and energy transmissions, whatever it was, for whatever reason. I was sleeping in this dorm, and I was waking up, around dawn, and I felt like I didn't know who or what I was in any sort of way. I had no identification as being a human being, even, or Susan, certainly not. It was just, or even being a body. I felt like I was coming into this reality from somewhere very far away from it, like very not connected with it.
But you felt yourself as a presence.
I felt, yeah, and it was sort of dark, in a way, but it was almost, I had already come from that, so that was, it was like I couldn't remember exactly any details about it, and I was coming into form, and so it took me a few minutes to kind of realize, oh yes, a human being. I'm Susan here, and I'm okay, and I'm at this retreat, and I told myself my story about what I think I am most of the time, and it was a really profound experience.
So kind of similar to what we're talking
similar,
about,
doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's
a
like
glimpse
you're
of it, maybe.
dropping the self-image, dropping the idea that you're progressing in time,
Or that you're a body.
but remembering that you're basically a spiritual presence. That's what you are.
And it seemed real, and it seemed like that was good enough. That was more real than the being at this retreat and doing this whole thing I was doing.
And the teaching is that once you do that, have what I described there, putting all that aside, like the mind be quiet and empty, and remembering who you are, brings you back into the experience or understanding or the knowing of the truth of what you are, which is a spiritual state, not in form, where it says it was completely peaceful and completely joyful and happy, constantly. It's kind of like what people in after-death experiences sometimes talk about, being really happy.
Right, but to have that experience, I've had that experience, not all the time, not in a totally consistent and persistent way, but I've had it, quote, more and more as time goes on in my life, right? And I've had it, and when I experience that, I'm still in the dream, if you will. I'm still in the body. I'm still having a life that on the surface looks much like it does right now. But I'm just saying, all I'm saying is it's possible to have that kind of experience without believing in the idea that the world is unreal. In other words, you can open up to the heart and have a feeling of the world isn't that important. Maybe this would be more like Eckhart Tolle or something. It's not that important what's going on, but you're in a state of peace. Maybe this might be a more Zen-like experience or something, or just, I don't know, but people that meditate a lot and just are at peace with the world. In other words, you probably can have one foot in one world, one foot in the other. And there may come a time, yes, when the physical appearance drops away, and I would think it would happen at death, but whatever. So, and that you don't come back, or you don't feel the urge to come back or something.
Right.
And then, in which case, I would just kind of guess on the metaphysics of this that maybe the one just chooses to be just the one, and no more of this earth game or any kind of game and form. But of course, since there's no time in that state of mind, it could, in theory, still continue going on for infinity. That there's some kind of dream world that's happening out here that or somewhere out there, not part of the one, that continues doing its thing. But it's like there's two different things. There's time with all this stuff happening, and then there's a state of consciousness, which is primary, which is the source of the apparent universe. But it's sort of behind it. It's like not, or within it. It's not visible. It's not tangible, because that's the universe already.
Good questions. I think I've struggled with trying to understand this too, and I think it makes sense to me what I said earlier. Again, that this is in the course. They basically telling us, that it's just beyond our understanding with our minds that we have.
It's incomprehensible.
The minds that we've created to have these experiences is a limited mind.
Right.
It's based on the idea of time, space, physical limitation, bodies that are inadequate in a sense.
Right.
So within that context, you can't really explain it, but it says that as you begin to move that direction and you start to come to the state of knowing, that it becomes clear to you.
Yeah.
You know it.
If I can suggest an analogy here that might help it make more sense. Let's say back in the 1960s or something, we invented some sort of a primitive computer, or maybe the 1970s is more like it, or the first computers we had, and they can do a certain amount of calculations and mathematics, and they can figure out how to kind of take your instructions to make kind of a drawing, and they can take your typing and your instructions to put some words in, but they can't really think, Maybe if they're really good, they can kind of like correct spelling errors or something like that, but that's about the limit of it. And so you can't expect that level of unconsciousness or just thought, if you will, or intelligence, to really understand like what AI can seemingly kind of understand now, or the things it can put together, or what we ourselves in this conversation can understand. It's sort of like we are the one that created this primitive computer thingy that can do certain primitive things, but you can't expect it to ever, in that state of form, ever be able to understand what we're talking about.
Well, I think too, that we're basically using the mind that's limited and using words. So that whatever sort, whether it be AI or whatever, could talk about the one, the ultimate dimension, whatever words you want to use.
And it does.
But they're words, and we don't really know. Words are symbols.
Right.
And we don't really know what it would be like, We start to imagine, for me, the way my mind would go, imagine, okay, I leave this world, so to speak, and I'm a spiritual being in this oneness. What do I do? I play a harp?
What's up?
Am I bored?
Yeah. Right. You sing a form again.
Yeah.
You sing a heaven world, maybe.
But what's communicated in the various teachings is that it's really a place of great joy and creativity. But I don't know how it can be. You see what I mean? My mind can't go there. What do you mean? What would I be doing?
Well,
I'm not creating, the book I wrote, or
if I may draw in some other thing that seems kind of evidential. There's this guy named Christian Sundberg I've been watching on YouTube, and he claims to have only incarnated with the understanding that he would not have a complete veil over his memory of what preceded birth.
Oh.
And he claims that he ultimately has recovered his memory of before he ever incarnated as a human being. And that he remembers being kind of a spirit or something bouncing around in some sort of energy world, I guess.
Okay.
Something,
He describes it somewhat.
He didn't really describe it very much. But at some point, he encounters another spirit, which already implies a certain. This sounds more like the point at which God creates spirits, or the extensions of God's self. And he runs into one that seems so luminous and so full of love and everything. He says, "Wow!" He kind of communicates telepathically that I want some of that. You know, I want to experience that. How'd you get that way? And this entity said, "I chose to be a human being for a while."
But see, that's the idea of acquiring again.
It is. I know, but this is what happened. He reports anyway. Let's just put it that way. And he chose a life where there was a lot of physical suffering, injury, and I think, you know, handicap and stuff. A lot of pain, and he learned and grew through that, and then he became I guess back to the spirit world or whatever, which, I mean, I don't know, you know, if you would give validity to that. It seems like it's about as valid as anything else.
Yeah, I don't know either.
You know, how you would fit that together, or would you?
Well, I think, to me, what I feel I'm learning, you know, I'm studying this, and I'm trying to live it as best I can.
Yeah.
And I'd say it has
In spite of your wife with all her questions and doubts.
And so it has had significant effect on my life, because my mind is more quiet than it used to be. I don't react so much to things that happen to me or in the world. It doesn't mean I don't care. I do care about. I do care what happens. I do care about people, but I mean, I just don't get pulled into it like I used to emotionally, and you know.
You've
more
always
personal. I'm not taking it so personally.
You've always been kind of an even Steven.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe.
Maybe.
But what I'm saying is I feel like it is for me a gradual learning process that because things come up that seem very real to me, you know, like if I got hit by a car, it seemed very real to me,
Right.
you know.
Right.
So, but I'm also learning, and I think I'm observing that there are things that, because when some event in my life happens, that if I find myself just becoming quiet and not judging it and reacting to it, that oftentimes things just calm down and resolve themselves.
Could this be like something like a health issue kind of flares up or something?
Yeah, it could be anything, I think, yeah. And I don't mean that it's perfect, because there are things I get caught up in, but I do see how that can work, and I see how I'm learning gradually that I begin to see how my mind is indeed creating these experiences.
I have one.
That's very real to me.
I have one important question for you.
All right.
This might be the last one. If this isn't true, is there a downside in believing it or practicing it?
There hasn't been a downside for me, because I'm, you know, I would say overall there's been less suffering for me.
For you personally, but could there be a downside, like, for example, that you...
For the whole world?
For the whole world, that you become passive and you don't do things that make the world better?
I don't think so, because I know, again, this would be different from what a lot of people say, but I've done enough study of history and you know, in various fields in medicine and other areas of interest, to realize that all the things that we generally do, like political, legal, you know, educational, really are not having much effect. Our world is going more and more in the direction of conflict and suffering, you know. And
some would disagree
I know,
with that.
people disagree with it. Oh, no, we're making progress, but in fields where I know something about it, you know, where I've had training and where I've had experience, no, that's not true. It's not getting better. And so I feel like, no, if it turns out not to be true, at least I've had less suffering in it. But I hope it's affecting the whole consciousness.
And there's one other thing I want to add, that lately we have a discussion group that we're involved in, that we host. And
oh, we do?
Yeah, remember that? and lately we had some really deep discussions that included some of this stuff in it. And at some point, I was facilitating the group, and at this point, I just suggested we be quiet for a minute and just come to presence. And in that experience, after this deep conversation about these different topics, there's this rich feeling of knowing, and that we're all sharing the same thing. So one, a oneness thing again.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt real, and in that more real, and it felt like it was a world of great potential, that such that the next day it seemed possible we could wake up from our beds or whatever, get up, and we'd all experience the world had changed really significantly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if what you say is true, that could, I guess, that could be a degree of awakening in which the dream would get better, and get better for, quote, all of us, parent multiple beings and so forth. And it could be that one, whatever one is, would just wake up, and there would be no more world, and called Earth and everything, and all that's going on Earth, and you'd forget about it. Actually, so you wouldn't even remember that it had existed, and there'd just be some indescribable sense of beauty and oneness and love. And so, I mean, I can buy that's possible, because I've felt that on my own. Apart from, I haven't studied the Course in Miracles. It's too much of a tome for me to want to get into, and it has too much what seems to me like patriarchal language. God, he, this, and that, all that stuff. It seems a little biblical. So, but I really appreciate that you've taken the time to, and from your 20 years of study of this stuff, and I know you have a lot of books on it and stuff, and you spend a lot of time reading it.
There have been other.
I appreciate that you've given a good summary of it.
Yeah, people that have studied the Course over the last, I don't know what, 20, 30 years. Some of them have also now been prompted to write.
Right.
And
There's
there are other
offshoots.
books that expand it and make it more clear. And
Okay.
it's to me very, very helpful, because, as I say, what attracts me is the desire to understand it. I know that's limited. The mind is limited to what it can understand. But to understand how my mind is creating on a moment-to-moment daily basis, is creating the feeling of separation, creating the feeling of fear, creating the feeling of vulnerability, and begin to then observe in my own mind the process they're describing and seeing it confirmed. Yes, I am doing that. And then begin to feel like as I understand that my mind begins to change and not function that. It's difficult, as your question you could bring is, well, how did it become different? You can't know, because you can't do. It's
You
not
don't know
like,
the path not
you
taken.
don't know the path not taken. All I can say is that, to me, it feels like moving towards being more peaceful.
Yeah, and that may be enough, to warrant doing it, even if it's not a completely true teaching. But I would say that after this discussion, I see more ways in which I could accept that it's true, and I could see. I think the major breakthrough for me here is just more of the idea, instead of using this language of God so much, just in God versus humans and all that, it's more
Right.
And time and all that. It's more like there's a state of consciousness that's very pure and unmanifest. But it has certain.
The Tao.
Yeah, it cannot be named and so on. It's a great unknown, but it has some kind of qualities, or qualia, as Federico Faggin says, of love, especially.
Yes.
And that it's outside of, or behind, if you will, the mind, which is always, the mind and thought is a type of form, and it's maybe primary, that creates reality, or designs things. And it always has, as its fundamental operating system, a binary aspect, just like computer codes do. It's like, it's dualistic. It's based on polarities. It always thinks in opposites. I mean, just like that we have, Republicans versus Democrats. We don't have like 1,000 parties. The mind wants to divide things into twos. You got male and female.
Yes.
You got up and down, night and day. I mean, it's.
The mind wants to separate.
And look at just the symbol of the Tao Te Ching too. It's very polarized.
Oh, yeah.
And then you look at physics and all that stuff. For some reason, everything, I think it's because it's the most simple thing. Out of the one came the two, Taoism. Out of the two came the many. I'd say the principles of the Tao Te Ching aren't really all that different
No,
from
they're not
this,
that different.
and it's very also in difficult to put into words. That's one of the main teachings of some of the Taoist philosophy is it's beyond words.
Well, here's something you probably appreciate. One of the extensions of the Course in Miracles original publication, people like studying it,
Right.
was the experience of a fellow named Gary Renard.
Right.
And he had these amazing experiences where he communicated with other beings about it that were not physical beings. And there's this book you mentioned, The Disappearance of the Universe. And so here's what's interesting about it, because it's a pretty thick book. It's very interesting, the dialogues in the book about the world and things we're talking about. But here's what's significant. You come to the end of the book, and Gary is told, all right, let me give you the fundamental truth of reality.
Okay, bottom line.
Yeah. God is.
Okay.
2 words.
Just God is.
God is everything.
Okay.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
That's it.
But then that does kind of include all the manifest too.
No, God is everything that's real.
Oh, okay.
What's imaginary does not exist.
Okay. God is true reality, basically.
Yes.
If you can add
God,
two more words.
True reality is God.
Yeah.
Period.
Okay. Okay.
And it's interesting, again, going back to the beginning of the Course in Miracles book, when you open up a book, sometimes there'll be, before you get to the preface or whatever, there'll be a little quote or something. Okay, so you open the book up, and there's this little couple of sentences that says, what is real cannot be threatened. What is not real does not exist. Therein lies the peace of God.
There you go. That's it. It's a nice quote.
Yeah.
I'll put it up here, and I think this is a good point to close this episode. I want to also note for those that have stuck it out this far. Good for you. Thank you. And I'm going to follow this with a little song that I created in Suno AI that is just a way of expressing this poetically. You could, if you couldn't, it's going to be posted separately too. If you want to refer to it later on, just to kind of inspire you, when you're back in the thick of it, try that out. So thank you for watching, and thank you, Richard, for sharing all of that. That was a deep exploration of what I know has been a very important awakening, if I can use the word, or exploration that you've been engaging in for these 20 years or so. Yeah.
Well,
since we moved to Sedona.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for your interest.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for watching.
This body's just a passing cloud with shadow voice that cries aloud. But we are sky, immense and clear. A perfect world is always near. We call upon that holy light that shines behind each earthly side. All forms respond, all veils grow thin. The real world rises from within. We see the truth of time and space, and shift our dreams with wondrous grace. For what we see reflects this mind, and we can leave old forms behind. This world is a light, this flesh is song, a holy rhythm pure and strong. Illusions fade as truth remains.